Do you know how much Zoro respects King? Or what about Luffy? How much respect does Zoro have for his captain? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in today's video. We'll give each character a percentage of how much Zoro respects them, starting with the ones he respects the least and working our way up to the ones he respects the most. So let's get right into it with the first character, King, and Zoro's of course got zero respect for the Beast Pirate. Why? Well, King believes in his biological superiority, thinking he's better than Zoro just because of his Lunarian bloodline. But yeah, Zoro? Oh, he hates that. Because when Zoro was a kid, Quina told him that he was superior to her and that he'd eventually surpass her just because he was a man. But Zoro wasn't having any of that. He insisted that only effort and skill should decide who's stronger, not something you're just born with. So yeah, that's exactly why he's got zero respect for King. What? Did you think there was another special reason he had 0% respect for King? Alright, moving on, we've got Helmeppo, and Zoro's actually got 1% respect for him. Back in Shell's town, Helmeppo almost got Zoro executed just because he was a spoiled brat of the corrupt Marine Captain Morgan. Oh, and he even stomped on Rika's rice balls like a total jerk. But, fast forward, and Helmeppo had a huge glow-up. He actually put in the work, and now he's become a competent Marine. So when Zoro meets him again, although he doesn't even remember him at first, but once he does, he's got just a tiny bit of respect for him, at least for not being a loser anymore. Going from 1% all the way to 20%, we've got Kaku. At Impel Down, Kaku became one of Zoro's toughest ever enemies, but when Zoro eventually managed to take him down, he actually said sorry to him. Why? Well, because Zoro actually respected Kaku as a fighter and for his swordsman skills. So when they faced off again on Egghead Island, Zoro was absolutely up for a rematch against someone who he saw as a worthy opponent once before. Now, let's talk about the Kuina lookalike Tashigi at 35%. As I said, Tashigi looks eerily similar to Kuina, and that's where things get complicated. Because as they look so similar, every time he sees Tashigi, she reminds him of her, and yeah, it seriously pisses him off. But other than that, and of course being a pain in his ass from time to time as a Marine, he does respect her sword skills. Next up, Killer, and Zoro's got 40% respect for him. At first, Killer and Zoro were straight up enemies. Killer literally tried to kill him in Wano when he stepped in to save Hiyori. But later, at Onigashima, Zoro and Killer of course teamed up to fight Kaido and Big Mom, and here, Killer earned Zoro's respect through battle, as they're both warriors who back their captains, so yeah, Zoro respects that. Moving on, we've got Kuma, at 68%. First, at Thriller Bark, Kuma gave Zoro a chance to save his captain by offering him a deal to take all of Luffy's pain. Which of course Zoro did, giving us One Piece fans one of the most legendary moments in the series, the Nothing Happened scene. So after that, Zoro had at least some respect for him. But then, after finding out that Kuma actually saved the entire crew at Saba Odi and even guarded the Sunny for the 2 whole years until they returned, yeah, that 68% is well earned. Now we've got our first Straw Hat, Usopp, and Zoro's got 70% respect for him. Why? Because even though Usopp is scared out of his mind half the time, he still puts his life on the line to protect the crew, and Zoro respects that kind of bravery. But back in Water 7, when Usopp left the crew and then just expected to come back like nothing happened, Zoro was the first to shut that down. He straight up told everyone, that's not how this works. Usopp had disrespected Luffy's authority as captain, and that did not sit right with Zoro. So while he still respects Usopp for his courage, that moment definitely knocked him down in Zoro's respect book. Let's talk about Kozuki Hiyori, who Zoro's got 72% respect for. After Zoro saved her, she took care of him, treated his injuries, kept him warm, and even washed him. But what really earned his respect? Well, that was that she gave him Enma, her father's legendary sword. Sure, he had to give up Shushui since it was Wano's national treasure, but in return, Hiyori entrusted him with a blade worthy of legends. She saw him as a true swordsman worthy of wielding Enma, and if you give Zoro a sword like that, yeah, you're definitely getting some serious respect. Next up, we've got the Ghost Princess Perona at 73%. She took care of Zoro when he was unconscious and completely wrecked after Kuma yeeted him to Kuraigana. And yeah, the second he woke up, they started arguing non-stop, but yeah. Zoro's literally spent more time with Perona than the Straw Hats. 2 whole years stuck with her and Mihawk. Kinda wild when you think about it. But despite all the bickering, Perona actually helped him out big time. At first, she of course took care of his injuries, but later she made sure he got back to Saba Odi to reunite with the crew, because let's face it, he'd never find his way back alone. She even held off the Marines so he could escape. So yeah, Zoro might act annoyed by her, but he definitely respects her. We've now got another Straw Hat, Nami, and she's sitting at 75%. Zoro definitely respects her, but let's be real, he's also terrified of her. He's literally called her a witch, and for good reason. She's always smacking him around. Oh, and when she lends him money, yeah, good luck paying it back because her interest rates are insane. At this point, who even knows how much he owes her? But despite all that, he still respects her and would 100% put his life on the line to protect her. Having already talked about Helmeppo, we of course gotta mention Koby too. Zoro's respect for him, 77%. When they first met, Koby was a total weakling, but he still helped free Zoro back in Shellstown, and because of that, Zoro saw him as a friend. Then fast forward to Water 7, and when they met again, Koby had seriously leveled up. Zoro was actually surprised by his growth, and that was absolutely enough to earn his respect. Moving all the way up to 90%, we've got Brook. At first, Zoro wasn't exactly thrilled about a living skeleton joining the crew, but over time, they got along pretty well. And since Zoro naturally respects skilled swordsmen, Brook earned his respect too. Though of course, Zoro loves to mess with him by calling him Grandpa, since Brook is literally 69 years older. But yeah, despite the jokes, Zoro definitely respects Brook a lot. Staying at 90%, we've got another Straw Hat, Franky. After Zoro's intense fight with King, he was completely wiped out and eventually fell off Onigashima. But Franky came in clutch, catching him just in time and carried him to safety. Even though Zoro and Franky don't interact all that much, it's clear Zoro has a lot of respect for him. Franky may be a bit eccentric, but Zoro knows he can always count on him when it matters. Continuing with the Straw Hats, we've got Nico Robin at 95%. If there's one person Zoro's always ready to defend, it's Robin. But of course, at first he wasn't completely sold on her, but over time it's clear that whenever Robin's in trouble, Zoro's there to step in. A prime example? Back in Skypiea, when Enel zapped Robin, Zoro was absolutely furious and wanted some serious payback. And if you know Zoro, you know that's not really his thing, as he really doesn't fight for revenge, but seeing Robin hurt was a different story. So yeah, no doubt about it, Zoro's always got Robin's back. Moving up to 98%, we've got Chopper. Zoro may not be the emotional type, but he's absolutely got a soft spot for Chopper, no doubt about it. Like we saw it in Skypiea when Chopper got seriously hurt by Ohm, Zoro wanted revenge. And like I just mentioned with Robin, he doesn't fight for revenge, but again, seeing Chopper hurt was his breaking point. What really makes Zoro respect Chopper though? It's not only that Chopper's always there to patch him up after every injury, but it's also at times, like with the Foxy Pirates, when Chopper started crying, Zoro didn't let him get all soft, telling him to act like a man. Chopper listened, and that moment showed Zoro some serious growth in Chopper, and that's what he truly respects. Oh, and remember when Zoro got the Oni virus? He knew Chopper was the only one who could save everyone, so he handed it over without a second thought. That's how much he trusts Chopper and his skills. Now, let's move up to the characters Zoro's actually got 100% respect for. And first up, Sanji. Yeah, I know. It might surprise some of you, especially since Zoro and Sanji can't stop bickering and fights over literally everything. Hunting, bounty rankings, you name it. And fun fact, if you've noticed, Zoro never calls Sanji by his name. Anyway, despite all that, the respect is real. The clearest proof? When Sanji called Zoro after his Germa modification started kicking in, asking him to kill him if he lost his emotions. And Zoro? He said he'd do it, but only after telling him not to die before that. So yeah, they're always at each other's throats, but when it really counts, they've always got each other's backs. And that's true respect right there. Another character Zoro has 100% respect for is Rika. When Zoro was tied up and starving at Shellstown, Rika risked her own life just to bring him some rice balls. Even though Helmeppo stomped all over them and threw them on the ground, Zoro still ate them. That's how much he appreciated her kindness, and it's why he respects her so much. Now we've got Jinbe, and yeah, he's sitting at a solid 100%. Now, you might be wondering why Jinbe is at 100% when characters like Nami and Usopp aren't, but here's why. Remember when Zoro found out that Ace had died in Luffy's arms? Yeah, that hit Zoro hard, especially since he wasn't there to support his captain. But you know who was? Jinbe. He stayed by Luffy's side through all of that, and Zoro truly respected him for it. So when Jinbe finally joined the crew, Zoro was actually genuinely happy about it. And if you know Zoro, you know that's rare. He doesn't exactly accept new people easily, but for Jinbe, yeah, he earned that respect. Next up, we've got Kozuki Oden at 100%. Why? Well, Oden was one of the strongest swordsmen in history, and he wielded two legendary swords, Enma and Amma no Habakiri, with absolute perfection. And when Zoro first used Enma, he could instantly feel just how insanely strong Oden must have been, especially since the sword literally almost destroyed his arm. On top of that, Oden was strong enough to leave a scar on Kaido, just like Zoro eventually did. So, hearing all these legendary tales about Oden, Zoro couldn't help but have nothing but pure respect for him. Let's now talk about Zoro's old mentor, Kushiro, who holds a special place at 100% respect. Kushiro didn't just teach Zoro sword techniques, he taught him discipline and the true meaning of being a swordsman. After the tragic death of Kuina, who of course fell victim to the dreaded Down D stairs, Kushiro was the one who passed down the legendary Wado Ichimonji to Zoro. Then, during Zoro's fight against Mr. One, when he was nearly defeated, it was Kushiro's words that helped him unlock the ability to cut steel to eventually defeat Mr. One. Talking about Kushiro, we've got to talk about Kuina, as Zoro's of course got 100% respect for her. Zoro saw Kuina as his true rival, and they literally fought over 2,000 times. But yeah, Zoro lost every single one of them. When Kuina then once told him that he would eventually surpass her because he was a man, he got angry and told her that only skill could determine a swordsman's strength. And that day, they promised each other that they would both strive to become the greatest swordsman ever. However, again, as I said, she got killed by Down D stairs. So instead, Zoro promised her that he would become the world's greatest swordsman even if she's not alive. So yeah, without Kuina, there's no Zoro. Talking about becoming the greatest swordsman ever, we gotta talk about Mihawk, who's also at 100%. Zoro's entire dream is to surpass this man, and even after getting absolutely demolished, I mean, Mihawk literally used a butter knife at first, Zoro never lost sight of his goal. Then, after Marineford, he straight up swallowed his pride and begged Mihawk for training, something Mihawk laughed at first, but ultimately agreed to after seeing Zoro's determination for Luffy's sake. But even after 2 years of training, Zoro admitted he still wasn't ready to face Mihawk again, showing just how much he respects Mihawk's insane strength. So yeah, there's no bad blood here, just pure respect. Finally, also at 100%, the one you've all been waiting for, Luffy. Yeah, this one's a no-brainer, as Zoro would literally die for his captain, no hesitation. At first, he made it clear, if Luffy ever got in the way of his dream, he'd kill him. But over time, that completely changed. Now, Zoro believes his dream means nothing if he doesn't help Luffy achieve his. Like at Thriller Bark, Zoro was ready to sacrifice his life for Luffy without a second thought. And when Luffy lost Ace, Zoro swallowed his pride and begged Mihawk for training, all just to get stronger for his captain's sake. And yeah, he calls Luffy an idiot all the time, but when it matters, he never doubts him, trusts his decisions, and follows his orders without question. No matter how reckless Luffy gets, Zoro will always have his back, because to him, Luffy becoming Pirate King is a guarantee. Now, you probably thought we were done. Nope! There's actually one thing Zoro's got infinite respect for, and yeah, it's Google Maps. Listen, if Zoro had any sense of direction, he'd be unstoppable. Like, even when people point where to go, he literally gets lost. He could be walking in the streets of Dressrosa and somehow end up fighting Vegeta. So yeah, he'd give anything to be able to use this, and that's why Google Maps gets infinite respect from Zoro. How much do you respect Zoro? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.